and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Nosebleed Radio, presented by Paisan's Pizzeria in Omaha. Here's your host, Tucker Franklin.
What's up, episode 29 of Nosebleed Radio. I'm here with the boys, the squad, KB, Kieran Brennan.
How's it going?
Toby Todd.
What's up?
And Shane Miller.
Hey, how's it going, Roll Hawks?
Episode 29, so we're talking about our favorite 29s, guys who are number 29, or girls. I'll start it off. I'll go with one of my favorite ever to wear 29, Eric Berry. You know, I watched this Chiefs game this last weekend, and I really wished Eric Berry was on the defense because our defense sucks. I'll touch more on that later. But Eric Berry, my number 29. KB, you want to go next?
Yep, I'm going to go with arguably, the best athlete to ever come out of Ohio State, Malik Hooker. I think he is one of the best up-and-coming safeties. I just saw, watching the Colts play last year, the defense after he was gone, and then watching them play this year when he's on the field, the secondary looks different. I mean, there's still holes, but he's a ball hawk who can still make up a lot of the difference.
Tobes?
Being from Kansas City, I'm going to have to go with a really old baseball player from the Negro League, Satchel Paige.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
And, yep, he was just... the stories you hear about Satchel Paige are kind of hard to believe sometimes. But I've been down to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum a few times. It's really cool. Satchel Paige, my number 29.
Shane, wrap us up.
Well, you guys all took the 29s I was going to take, and I forgot to look one up. So I'm going to guess Eric Dickerson was 29, right? Was he 29 or 28?
29.
29, yeah. Eric Dickerson's my number 29. Part of the greatest show on turf, if I'm not mistaken. Kieran?
He was before that.
He was before that? Dang it.
That team was like Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt,
Yeah.
Marshall Falk.
Marshall Falk was a great show on turf, yeah. Well, he led to it. So, plus he wore the rec specs, and anyone who wears rec specs in the NFL is A-OK in my book.
Rec specs, underrated piece of sporting equipment. I'll say it. All right, I'm glad that we all agree.
I don't know who's going to argue with you on that.
All right,
Nope.
see, we all agree.
I think if that Georgia kicker wears rec specs the rest of the season, the Georgia Bulldogs will go undefeated and win the national championship.
Hot take, because it's going to have a hard time beating Mizzou this week. I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
We'll talk about college football later. We'll go to the NFL, where we've got some games going on. We had yet another tie. Like, nobody likes ties, and we've seen that. Well, Toby, do you like ties?
Hate them.
Toby hates ties. Let's pull the room. KB, you like ties?
I love ties when they don't happen to my team because I just like to see two disgruntled, unsatisfied fan bases leaving the same game. Just like Coach always said, a tie's like kissing your sister. Just watching a whole stadium leave of people who just made out with their siblings.
Also, who the hell came up with that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Probably Coach Callahan. Shout out Coach Callahan.
Which Coach Callahan?
My Coach Callahan.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Nebraska's old Coach Callahan, and I was like,
no, Nebraska's not that good.
especially not with Coach Callahan. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. But I don't like ties, but I do agree it's kind of funny to watch no one leave happy from a stadium, especially if it's two teams I don't like. It was kind of a positive for Cleveland. Ended their losing streak, although it did not start their winning streak, and then they lost again. So
yeah. I think that the only place ties belong are on your neck. So
or your shoes.
Yeah, you need to tie your shoes.
Or Thailand.
Yeah.
Thailand. Do you think they tie a lot in Thailand?
That was dumb.
Yeah.
Cut that.
That joke sucked.
That's all right. Leave it.
Let's cut that.
No, let's leave it.
Yeah, I will. I was just joking that we were going to cut it.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
My bad.
So anyway, go back to ties. The Vikings and the Packers tied, which could potentially be kind of a big deal in that division for the top spot. What did you think of that game, Toby? I know you kind of watched the end of it there.
Yeah, the thing that I took away from that game is that the Vikings are a superior team to the Packers.
Right.
Take away the quarterbacks, and it's not even close between those two respective ball clubs. the Vikings kicker, Daniel Carlson, missed 3 field goals. A day after, actually, his brother missed a field goal against LSU that would have put them up by 11. They went on to lose that game by 1 point after his missed field goal gave Auburn no points in the fourth quarter, allowing LSU to come back. So tough weekend for the Carlson brothers.
For the brand, really.
Yeah,
It was a tough weekend
for the brand. Yeah, because the Browns, who were previously mentioned, really screwed themselves over too.
Right. 4 missed kicks. You can't miss
Yep.
4 kicks.
Yeah, and Carlson, I know today, was cut by the Minnesota Vikings, he was just drafted this year, so they used a draft pick on him. Already cut him. They picked up Dan Bailey. I believe they gave him a qualifying offer, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I'll look it up. I'll fact check you.
For Dan Bailey. So, Minnesota, a team who, in recent history, if you remember Blair Walsh, has been terrorized by kicker errors, were screwed over yet again. But I left that game thinking the Vikings are clear-cut better than the Packers. The receivers they have, the defense that they have is just superior. So, yeah, that was my takeaway from that game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this also proves how good of a quarterback Aaron Rodgers is because there was just a ridiculous amount of offense in this game. I mean, Kirk Cousins, I've previously said that I think he was basically the exact same as Case Keenum, and he wasn't going to do that well. And so far, I have been proven wrong. He has been lighting it up. But like Toby said, he has a way better team around him than Aaron Rodgers does in Green Bay. And Aaron Rodgers was still able to keep them in that game. I mean, the dude is just not human. We talked about this last week when he came back against the Bears. I'm pretty sure that the NFL is just too easy for Aaron Rodgers. So he says, all right, let's make this fourth quarter as interesting as possible because that's the only time I'm going to actually start to play. And then he comes in and just does what he does every time he's in a game, especially against the Cowboys when he comes back and wins in the fourth quarter, which should be illegal to do to a team more than once in a season.
Yeah, I think it should be.
That sounds like a good rule change.
Another game that was a very good game. AJ Green had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter? Receiving touchdowns. I mean, Pat Mahomes did it, but it wasn't like one wide receiver getting 3 touchdowns, you know?
Right. I mean, AJ Green had a sort of disappointing season last year. I'd say the Bengals as a whole were kind of a disappointment last year.
Yeah, I'd say that.
But thus far, through these first 2 games, to already have a win over a division opponent, to be 2-0, and to get Andy Dalton and AJ Green both off to pretty hot starts this season, I think this is a really good sign for Cincinnati.
This raises the question, though, how bad would the Bengals beat the Bills? Since the Ravens beat the Bills, what was it, 42 or
47-3.
47-3,
Wow.
and the Bengals beat them 34-23. So do you just add however many that they beat the Ravens by, and that's what the score would be?
I think the Bills cut their losses because Vontae Davis quit. So the Bills will probably improve tenfold now that Davis is gone.
And the Bills are playing like a competent quarterback. Like, not super competent, but he at least, like, you know.
Better than Nathan Peterman.
I mean, anyone is better
yeah.
than Nathan Peterman.
Didn't he not do very good in college either?
I think he started like 10 starts or something.
I'm pretty sure he had a bad college career too, and people were like, "Why'd you draft him?" And then he's literally had the like identical numbers in college as he has in the NFL.
He was really bad at Tennessee. He got run out of Tennessee when Dobbs came in. And then at Pittsburgh, he had a pretty successful final season, which got him drafted.
His mom must be friends with McDermott, you know?
Has to be.
Has to be.
Like really good friends?
Like, I'm saying, like
more than friends?
Like
Maybe
they probably make forts at each other's houses.
Gotcha.
maybe to the point where, like, she doesn't even have to ask to spend the night anymore. She just kind of, like, does, and, like, McDermott's mom's like, all right, like, it's just another one of my kids.
Going back to the Bills, though, was it Vontae Davis retired at halftime?
Yeah, Vontae Davis.
Embrace debate. We were talking about this earlier. Is that a power move or like a bitch move to retire at halftime? Because basically what he said was, I'm not good enough to make this team any better, So I'm quitting now.
He probably just got so stressed out that he faced Josh Allen every day in practice that it just finally got to him. Josh Allen just really
You mean
broke
that
him down.
mediocre quarterback from Wyoming?
Josh Allen, yeah.
I've always wondered this too about athletes who play on teams that they know they're bad. They know they're defeated, which they were at halftime of that game. I think Melvin Gordon had 3 touchdowns in the first half. They lost by 44 the week prior. I wonder how much guys who have grown up their entire lives being the best, and Vontae Davis had played on some successful Colts teams, some Colts teams that weren't that bad, but I don't think any Colts team that he was on were as bad as these Bills, at least through that first game and a half of this season, because that was pretty embarrassing. And I think it's kind of a weak move. Like, it's Nebraska fans going in on Gebbia saying, oh, you lost your spot. That's a weak move to leave. It's a weak move to just quit on your team, especially mid-game. Like, you can't even finish it out with the team. He had his stuff packed up and just walked out on him. That's weak to me.
It's just like, so he's in football terms, for the position that he played, an older player. And so I think that if he's, you know how like you just watch some players play Peyton Manning his final season, you're like, this game is
way
moving.
too long.
This game is moving too fast for him.
Yep.
I think that's what it was for Vontae Davis. But like,
Plus, he was on a shit team.
Like, I think that like escalated it like tenfold. Like if he's on the Patriots or Jaguars, I think he sticks it out for the year. But he's on this Bills team, and it's like it's moving too fast. Plus, like it's garbage football, so he's just like, I'm just not gonna do this anymore.
I just picture him walking in the locker room at halftime, sitting in his locker and looking around at the rest of his team, going, "Yeah, this is definitely not going to work out for the rest of the game." And maybe Sean McDermott comes in like, "All right, guys, we're down, but we can come back." And he was like, raises his hand and goes, "I respectfully disagree," and then walks out of the building. That's kind of how I pictured.
I don't know how to think about like what this move is. It's just so unheard of.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing I think of is like John Kruk. He like hit a double and then just walked off the field.
yeah.
Like he did something kind of similar, but at least like he ended on like a positive note.
Yeah.
But for the John Kruk thing, they knew that was coming. Like
Yeah.
he had told
no
them
one really
before.
knew this was coming
Right.
from Vontae Davis.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weak. I think
It's kind of like
but-
when Barry Sanders just faxed in his retirement.
yeah, a little
It was
bit.
just like, it's worse than that.
Faxed in the middle of the game.
Yeah, if he would have gone to back in time at halftime to like 1995, sent a fax, because I think that's the only place you can find fax machines now,
Mhm.
and sent a fax to future Bills saying I'm retiring at halftime. That would have been more similar to Barry
That'd been-
Sanders.
oh, you know what would have been really cool if like Barry Sanders actually would have like sent the fax at halftime of a game. So like during the middle of the game, he just like runs and then goes to, like a fax machine
Yeah,
in the stadium. Say it's an away game.
I'm assuming it was a.
it'd probably
fax
have to
machine.
be.
He sends the fax at halftime, scores a touchdown as the fax gets there, and then he just keeps running.
Yep.
Like he
Mhm.
scores
Like
the
Forrest
touchdown
Gump.
and just.
I was
runs
thinking
into
Bo
the touchdown.
Jackson.
Oh yeah, you went with a real life player.
Yeah. Some other notable games. Chiefs beat the Steelers finally, and Heinz Field beat them 42-37. Pat Mahomes had himself a day. I believe he had 6 touchdowns, set the record for most touchdowns for a player in 2 weeks or something like that. For the first 2 weeks.
Did you say
Yeah,
Le'Veon
first
Bell
2 weeks.
did?
What? No, Pat Mahomes.
I
I
think-
don't think I said Le'Veon Bell, did I?
I couldn't
I
tell
don't
you.
think I was really paying attention. I thought you might have said Le'Veon.
I was
Bell.
watching you play with your hair, so.
Oh, hey, thanks.
Coincidentally, that's the exact same score Scott beat York by. So throwing that out there.
Oh boy. So Pat Mahomes is the real deal. That offense could probably just outscore anybody, but that's not the kind of football I want to play.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
It's the-
the games are more stressful when you play football that way, the Big 12 way.
It's the football you'll have to play until Eric Berry gets back at least.
You guys don't really have a choice.
Yeah, well, because that secondary is so bad. Like watching that game, it's not like the Steelers like gassed us for big plays or anything. They just kept like nickel and diming it down the field, and we just couldn't cover like out routes, sit down routes, any route. We were playing cover 0, which is actually cover nobody, and my least favorite kind of defense. And I just it's stressful to watch, and I don't like it. It's the same way with Mizzou. basically the Chiefs and Mizzou run the same thing where they have a quarterback with a really strong arm and they just can outscore a bunch of people, have a lot of weapons on the receiving end, and have a really strong running back. But on defense, I think Mizzou's defense is probably better in terms of like the competition that they play, but they sure didn't show it on Saturday that it was better. But the Chiefs really need to sign. They need to get another safety or another defensive back because I think the answer. Well,
I think I know a defensive back that just came available.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he would make the Chiefs better though.
Could make them worse. That
Maybe.
secondary, at least.
Yeah, that secondary's bad. It's bad.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and pull a Shane Miller right here and throw my own team into the equation. But the Patriots, we saw this last year, first 4 games of last season. The pass defense was abysmal. Everybody's talking about, is this the end? The Patriots defense looks beat. Patricia has no answers through these first 4 weeks. The team you are in week 2 of an NFL season is not the team you are by week 17 of an NFL season. Personnel matters. Like, it obviously does matter. But making adjustments is also a huge part of the game. And if you have a coaching staff that you believe can make those adjustments throughout the season, then you're going to be a pretty talented team. Like, bad teams, like teams that are consistently bad, like the Browns and, like the Cardinals look this season. Like, those are teams that aren't going to make any adjustments throughout the year. They're going to play the same way the entire year. If you see improvement from the defensive backfield, a lot of times it's not going out and finding somebody who can play better. A lot of times it's just learning the schemes, learning how to play better with each other as you get more camaraderie amongst the position groups and all that. So I think there's definitely going to be growing pains, but I don't necessarily think the Chiefs are going to be allowing 450 yards passing per week. I mean, Big Ben threw the ball 60 times. Like, in a passer's league,
right?
You're going to allow a lot of passing yards if somebody throws it that much. Same goes with Purdue, throwing for over 500 yards against Mizzou. Like, it's going to happen when they throw it 60 times a game.
Yeah, and I think you do see that more because they recognize that the secondary is not good, and so they're going to throw it 60 times a game. They're going to throw it 50 times a game.
Right.
So that's just how teams are going to prepare for the Chiefs. And I think what they have to do is they just have to stop them like once or twice a game. If Pat Mahomes can score touchdowns every single time he touches the ball,
that could work against a lot of teams. But I think to win,
I'm not saying that Pat Mahomes is going to score every time he gets the ball.
Yeah,
but I'm saying in theory, if the Chiefs want to play how they're set up right now, like Pat Mahomes. They scored. The Chiefs offense scored a lot of the times they had the ball. I mean, I don't have the game log in front of me, but more times than not, they scored. Well, if you score, how many points did they score? 47
42.
points? 42 points in the game? You're going to score a lot of times you touch the ball. The defense just has to get themselves off the field and just let Pat Mahomes do something.
Right.
We'll move on to the next game. Kieran's Colts got themselves a dub. Won a defensive showdown, something that Kieran is a little happy about, their defense.
Yeah, this isn't something that the Colts do often, but they won a defensive ball game. Andrew Luck only threw for 173 yards, which was not in prior years not really how the Colts won games quarterbacked by Andrew Luck. But the Colts defense led by Darius Leonard, a rookie out of South Carolina State University. Just they held Alex Smith. Tucker said nickel and dime it. Alex Smith, who tore apart the Cardinals defense week 1, just didn't have the same effect against the Colts. They didn't score a touchdown. Even a drive that began in the red zone didn't end in a touchdown for the Redskins. So I'm happy. I've always been a very optimistic Colts fan, and I will continue to be a very optimistic Colts fan. And I think I think the Colts can beat the Eagles in Week 3.
It's optimistic, especially with Carson Wentz starting.
Optimistic.
I don't think it's out of the question, though.
No, I don't think it's out of the question, but I think I'm just saying it's optimistic.
One thing that really helps defenses against the Redskins is that the Redskins have no skill position players that really strike fear in you. Like, even Adrian Peterson is not the same that he was 4 or 5 seasons ago. Like, they don't really have a skill position guy that, like, strikes fear into you. And that's something that I think the Colts, just going forward, especially in their division, will have to deal with, since teams like the Texans have
Yeah, like
The
these have
best
like Deshaun Watson.
the best receiver in the league,
Deshaun
DeAndre
Jackson.
Hopkins.
These have like Deshaun Jackson on those Eagles.
But I think just people do this all the time. That there's a team that's bad for a couple of years, and then people are like, "Oh, that team is going to be bad forever." I think that people just aren't accustomed. They're like, "Oh, this team is bad. This team will be bad until like proven otherwise." And I think the Colts have fallen the victim to that. Like people don't take into like account like all the injuries that they've had, and this is like not a ball club that is as bad as like the Bills and the Cardinals and like the Browns are, but have been put on that same level. You know,
The only person that Adrian Peterson strikes fear into now is his son.
Put that one in the offensive joke category, but that is
That plays.
funny. It was funny.
Yeah,
plus
but
aren't the Eagles missing like 4 of their top 5 wide receivers? So like,
Alshon Jeffrey's gone.
Nelson Aguilar's become the stud of that team all of a sudden.
Buccaneers just beat the Eagles.
That's true. But Fitzmagic is still there, baby.
That post game outfit he was rocking was so
That's confidence. It's
That-
oozing.
If you're Jameis Winston, you're shaking your boots right now because you know he is not giving this position back easily with an outfit like that.
I don't think it's an overreaction to say that James Winston might not start again.
no, I don't think.
I don't think that's hard for me
All
to
right,
say.
so here's the
Jameis
thing.
is really good also.
Here's the thing. So Jameis Winston is suspended for the first 3 games.
Yeah.
So he will not be back in the locker room until Monday after the Sunday game. The Buccaneers have that Thursday night game that week. So realistically, after that week, they go into their bye week. So realistically, Ryan Fitzpatrick could lead the Buccaneers to a 4-0 start. And after he leads them to a 4-0 start, do you really plug Jameis Winston back in there?
It depends how he's playing. If he's still playing the way he is, I think it's hard to take him out and get rid of that chemistry that obviously he has. I think as soon as he starts slipping up, Jameis is back in though.
Plus, I mean, John Gruden's over there in Oakland just fantasizing about Jameis Winston. You know, he's got his little Jameis Winston shrine in his room every night. He's just like, it'll be hard to start a guy who's already committed to a different team.
I agree. I mean, I personally have not thought Jameis Winston is that good ever.
Ryan
But I know Toby, you're a big Jameis guy.
Jameis Winston, yeah, so Jameis Winston coming out of college, entering the draft process, had 1 career college loss. No, it was a bad one. That loss to Oregon was a bad loss. But if you had told me that there's a guy entering the draft who lost 1 time in his entire collegiate career as a starter, I'm inclined to roll with that guy as a quarterback, knowing that he's a proven winner. But he's gone to Tampa Bay, and there's weapons around him in place. Deshaun Jackson, we see Deshaun Jackson is a hell of an offensive weapon when used correctly. You know, don't run him on these little drag routes, you know. Send the man deep. He's not a great route runner. He's fast. He makes plays downfield. Jameis Winston doesn't find him as consistently as Fitzpatrick does, which is why you see all the electric plays from Fitzpatrick, at least through these first 2 weeks. Mike Evans, who's a star receiver. Sometimes I think Winston trusts his arm over trusting his receivers, and that gets him in trouble too. Like, the tools are there for Winston to be a good quarterback, just like the tools are there for like Marcus Mariota to be a good quarterback. But like, I don't know. Maybe it will take a guy like Gruden to bring him out in him.
Fitzpatrick got down there with his Harvard brain and said, "You guys know you have Deshaun Jackson on the team, right?" And the Buccaneers are like, well, "Who's that?" And then he's like, "He's the guy that can do this: 75-yard touchdown, 80-yard touchdown, you know,
Does
just
Ryan
stuff like
Fitzpatrick
that."
have a better arm than Jameis Winston?
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick
Not
has a
strong
better.
arm.
I think this is a fact. Ryan Fitzpatrick has a better brain than Jameis Winston,
I'd go with
and
medical fact.
and the brain is like, as we saw with Peyton
Big
Manning.
muscle.
Peyton Manning didn't have the best arm. He threw a lot of ducks, but he had a really good brain. And so, like, that's why he was as successful as he was. Like, you can have all the arm talent in the world, but you gotta have a little bit of brain.
It's like they say. It's like having a 12-inch dick that can't get hard. It looks great in the shower, but can't really use it.
It makes you
I guess
question,
that's
like,
what they say. I've never heard anybody say that.
didn't Jameis
My dad's told me that before.
Didn't Jameis Winston steal crabs?
My dad was talking about a truck that's not
did.
4-wheel drive, though.
Crabs.
Two different topics.
Crabs are a food that's a lot of work for little payoff. So if you're going to
I agree
steal
with that.
if you're going to
Yep.
steal that, you're an idiot. If you're going to sexually assault an Uber driver, also an idiot. You know who's
Yeah.
not an idiot? The guy who went to Harvard. I'm all aboard the Ryan Fitzpatrick
He
train.
did some quick math and said, all right, Tampa
Also-
Bay minus Jameis for 3 weeks equals me lighting it up.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick does this to us every couple of
What do you
years.
think
We
his
always get
major
surprised
was?
that he's good.
We always he's like,
I'll look it up.
he's going to be really good this year, or Ryan Fitzpatrick good. Next year, he won't be good, but, that's how his career has gone.
This is what concerns me about Ryan Fitzpatrick playing longer. Whenever he comes in, whenever Jameis Winston gets suspended or whatever, he plays really, really good for like 2 games, and in that 3rd game, he goes back to playing like ass. And we're all like, oh yeah, this is why Jameis Winston is starting, because he's consistently good at quarterback.
I don't know if it'll be this week, though, because he's playing a Steelers defense that, isn't Steelers and Packers, both teams that don't have the same defense that they used to. Steelers, Packers, and Seahawks.
Yeah, but this just in, Ryan Fitzpatrick studied economics at Harvard.
You know who else studied economics? The smartest guy I know, Kyle Brewster. So
Kyle Brewster. Shout out Kyle. Other KB.
don't call him the other KB. I hate that.
So, we didn't talk about the Patriots, did we?
No, we
No.
did.
Do you want to talk about the Patriots?
It's
I'm giving
basically
you an
this-
opportunity.
Yeah, it's just what I referred to earlier.
No, talk
The
about Josh Gordon.
Talk about Josh Gordon. Oh yeah, we did get Josh Gordon.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that.
He's actually in right now. Vegas set the line for will he be on the Patriots by at time the regular season ended?
It was even, I thought.
Plus 140.
No,
that he
the
remains.
Eagles were even.
Plus 140 that he remains on the
Oh.
roster. So he is actually, I believe he's an underdog to stay on.
Yep, that means he's not an underdog.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, this is a guy who obviously has had some problems. And Belichick will make these signings where they go out, they get a veteran receiver. They go out, get a veteran receiver, and then don't play him. They just stick with the same guys because Tom Brady can work with the same guys. So we'll see how much of a difference Gordon makes.
And you have Edelman coming back.
Edelman comes back week 4, yeah, which will definitely help.
Hey, did you know that Ryan Fitzpatrick was drafted by the Rams? When they
I
were in
did
St.
know
Louis?
that.
I did not know that.
Does Edelman come back week 4, or is week 4 his last week of suspension?
He's a 4-game suspension.
Yeah. Week 4 is actually yeah.
So it'll be week 5.
Oh, so I believe week 5 is against the Indianapolis Colts. But that'd be
congratulations.
short week. So I don't know how much action he'd get that game. Because if it's like a Jameis Winston situation, he'd come back on Monday for a Thursday game.
Shane, you want to talk about the Cowboys? You got a
Yep.
dub.
We did get the dub. It was against the Giants, which you love to see because I hate the Giants. I hate Eli Manning's stupid face.
That's how I really feel.
He is a mouth breather, but that's besides the point. What I really liked was how good our defense looked. I think our defense looks awesome this year. DeMarcus Lawrence is tearing it up. My man Taco Charlton was out there literally making tacos on the field as a celebration after he got some sacks. So love that dude. What I liked but am concerned about was our offense looked better, but not consistent. So we looked like crap last week. We looked okay this week. We still haven't really determined who's going to be our big offensive threat. Dak isn't throwing as consistently as he was 2 years ago still. Michael Gallup is looking good, though. The guy from Colorado State, one of our draft picks. I think if we keep working with him, keep developing him, in the future, he'll be a really good receiver. So I guess I'm kind of excited about the future for the Cowboys offense. As soon as we get our whole line back together and healthy, I think it'll really help out our running game with Zeke. So we'll see. I think things are on the up and up for the Cowboys.
Zeke had 17 attempts for 78 yards, so it's better than last week of 15 and 69. So he's getting there.
Based on what we've seen from the NFC East teams through these first 2 weeks, it's not crazy to think that it's a game to see first one to like 14 wins, these NFC East games, because all 4 of these offenses have been shite all season. Like the Cowboys winning yesterday, like definitely a product of the defense. Giants didn't score until garbage time, fourth quarter. I mean, the Redskins didn't score a touchdown yesterday. The Eagles,
Nope.
The Eagles started scoring late against the Buccaneers, who allowed 41 to the Saints offense. So like the Buccaneers defense still a little shaky, as well as Fitzpatrick's been playing, but they held the Eagles to 2 times less than what they allowed week 1. So like those offenses have all kind of looked a little suspect here in the early going.
One thing that our offense and defense did do well was they worked well together in tandem. This might just be me reaching for something good to talk about, but if our offense didn't score, we really did a good job of pinning the Giants' offense deep, and then our defense would go in, either create a turnover or get them to punt and put us in good field position. So our defense did keep us in good field position for most of the night. So that's something positive to take away from it.
Right. I think we hit on all of our teams, didn't we? Anything else we want to talk about for the NFL?
That's probably good NFL.
No, I don't think so. I'm looking at the Cowboys stats right now, and your leading receiver is Cole Beasley with 86 yards. Your second receiver is Tavon Austin, who's got 2 receptions on 2 targets for 79 yards. So through 2 games, you guys have 1 touchdown, 2 receivers.
Tavon Austin is going to be good if he keeps playing like that.
Well, the thing is, I've learned living
That's a good point, Shane.
Yeah.
being
I
a
mean,
St.
football
Louis,
guys point out obvious things, but he played. He's fast.
being a
He's
St.
so
Louis,
fast.
being a St. Louis Rams fan, Tavon Austin is a good complementary piece.
Yes, he's not a
And
go-to guy, though.
watching the Cowboys the past couple of years with you, Shane, Cole Beasley, good complementary piece.
Yes.
But when these 2 guys are your leading receivers,
We don't
I mean-
have a good, like you said, we just have complementary pieces.
Yeah.
We don't have a go-to guy yet. Since Dez and Jason Witten both left in the same year, that's been really ruining my weekends.
it's real tough since like
Dez hasn't signed yet.
Dez hasn't signed
No.
anywhere,
Dez
and
won't
there are
this
still
season.
other like wide receivers available that could make an impact. But
Dez won't sign the season because he's too much of a headache for what he's worth. He's been on the down slope for the past 2 years.
I
I said it.
bet the Browns make a push to sign him.
I
now
think they
that-
will too.
now
Now they
that
don't have Josh Gordon.
Yeah, they let Josh Gordon
Oh,
go
That's
for
interesting.
basically very little.
I agree. Moving to college football. Had some big games this week. Ohio State looked like they were going to get upset, then all of a sudden decided to actually play football. Mizzou beat Purdue, first Power 5 team they beat this year. They eked out that win. Nebraska didn't look very good against Troy, but then again, they had a walk-on freshman play, so that was kind of rough to see. Who else do we want to talk about?
LSU.
LSU beating Auburn. That's a big one. LSU is see. I think Kieran described this perfectly. As people think that when a team's bad, they'll be bad for like a while. And I fell into that with LSU when they got bad after like Les Miles, and I was like, "Oh, LSU's just bad." Then all of a sudden, I look up and they're number 6 in the country.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite with LSU. I always think they're better than they are because I remember them being really good when I was a kid.
Yeah,
And that's why I started to really like LSU. So now every year I'm like, well, yeah, LSU's, a top 10 school. Why are they not in ranked? Then I look at their record and I'm like, oh, shit, they kind of suck this year. But this year, they're actually good. So I'm excited for LSU.
they got that kid who transferred. I call him a kid, but he's probably just as old as I am.
Yeah, that's what I hate about being this age is I'm watching college athletes and be like, man, they're doing amazing things. Like, I wish I could be able to do that stuff. And then I'm like, I'm
Oh.
older than that guy.
Yeah,
Like the guy that just returned that massive punt for a touchdown. Yep, I'm older than him by 2 years. So like, yay, me, I guess.
another game that impressed me was. Oh, you have something to say, Toby?
Yeah, I had something to say just about LSU real
okay.
quick. I think the thing that's nice to see if you're an LSU fan is kind of the return to form of that defense
Oh yeah.
because the offense is still suspect in my opinion. I know Burrow's come in and he's beaten Miami and Auburn already, but I think he's completing less than 50% of his passes. The offense is not very efficient. They don't have the star running back like they've had in years past, which maybe is a reason that there's more balance on offense for LSU. But I mean, the defense returning to form is something that I think will put LSU over the top here, like this season. they'll probably be a 9-10 win team as opposed to the 7-8 win teams that they've been in years prior.
Yeah, and Toby never watched the Paul Feinbaum show. I just like to watch it to make Toby upset because as anything on the SEC network is very SEC biased. I talked to Shane about this today that the SEC is the most like every people within their conference are biased. Like people who like Big Ten teams are Big Ten biased. People like Big 12 teams are Big 12 biased. But the SEC is just doesn't compare to anybody else because they're just more biased than everybody. But everybody's biased,
Right?
You know?
Yeah, there's a little bias in every network.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And on the Paul Feinbaum show, they're talking about how what teams would go, what blue blood, and air quotes as I'm doing here, what blue blood football teams would do this year with Auburn's schedule. And Toby made a good point and said Auburn might even go 7-5.
Now that you've lost to LSU at home, Auburn has 2 road games. They picked Auburn because Auburn obviously plays the toughest schedule.
Right.
They have 2 road games now: Alabama, Georgia. I think it's safe to assume, especially if they played on offense the way they played there, they'll lose both those games by 3 scores. In Georgia and in Alabama, like they'll get slaughtered by those 2 teams, which I think we'd all agree are the 2 best teams in the country right now. But
yeah, I think so.
I mean, they got basically it wasn't a home game; it was a neutral site. But you're playing pretty much a pseudo home game against Washington week 1. You win by 5 points. Washington, a team by the way that squeaked out a win against Utah this weekend. So maybe Washington was a little overrated to start the season. Auburn got a 5-point win over them. Then you lose a home game already. Like, I don't know. It's hard to judge other teams playing that schedule. I think was what was kind of ludicrous to me because, like, imagine Auburn going in and playing, the Michigan or Ohio schedule in the Big Ten. Like,
what
you don't know how they'd fare.
Yeah, no, you don't. Because college football, I think, is one of those things that's just so unpredictable. You have no idea really what teams are going to do.
Right.
Peter Burns was actually the guy who was talking about this, and he said Michigan would go 7-5. He said Notre Dame would go.
So he said Notre Dame would go 7-5.
7-5, right? And he said Ohio State would go 11-1. He's the only one that had with that Auburn schedule. He said Ohio State would go 11-1.
One of the ones I took the most issue with was he said Oklahoma and Clemson would go 9-3.
Yeah,
and I said an SEC team. The only team you see that plays a Big 12 style in the SEC is Ole Miss, and they don't do it as well as Oklahoma. They don't have the players OU has. Defensively, they're not even as good as OU is. For being like an SEC team to have a defense worse than most Big 12 teams, like.
So I just found that graphic actually, and it said notable teams' records have played with Auburn's schedule. According to Peter Burns, Ohio State 11-1, Oklahoma 9-3. Clemson 9-3, Penn State 9-3, Michigan 7-5, Notre Dame 7-5, Miami 6-6, Texas 5-7, and Florida State 4-8.
Florida State and Texas are believable.
Yeah, I think Texas and Florida State would actually be flipped. Texas just does this thing where they just can beat USC, and then that's
can't
like the
Maryland.
only can't beat Maryland. So like I don't get it, honestly. So. Florida State's actually not very good. Willie Taggart today in a press conference asked the fans for patience, which you don't really get when you're at Florida State.
No.
Which that's a top program, and that's just not in a good spot. He's not in a good spot right now.
Speaking of asking fans for patience, let's talk about Nebraska for a little bit.
Okay, well.
Because I just want to get over this and move past it. Nebraska, this year is going to suck for Nebraska because all of our easy games are done, basically, and we lost both. I wouldn't say Colorado's an easy game, but they were one of the easier games on our schedule compared to the rest of it. And we didn't get to play Akron, so that sucks. But every Nebraska fan who was out there saying, we're going to go undefeated this year, go to the championship, or be in the Big Ten championship this year, they deserve to get made fun of by everyone else in the country. I've said this for a long time. A lot of Nebraska fans, a lot of Cowboys fans too, really piss me off because they're so irrational. They make me look bad just because I'm in the same group as them. And when I'm considering myself a more rational football fan, I think you guys would agree with me with all that.
For the most part, you could be irrational sometimes.
Okay, Mr. Drew Lock for Heisman.
It's possible.
That's possible.
It's possible. Yeah, well, one of our fans that's one of our friends who's a Nebraska fan. I had to talk to him. I said, "How you feeling, man?" And he said, "Oh, I know we could still make the Big Ten championship." And I said, "There's no way."
I'm going to guess
There's
that's old Dave
That's
Flukie.
exactly who it was. And
So-
I said, your defense is still the same as it was last year. That didn't change. Only thing that really changed is you had Scott Frost come in and start coaching, and you had a different quarter. You have a different quarterback.
You know, a new coach matters a lot in professional sports when you can add a new coach and then sign a bunch of new players. In college ball, you get a new coach and then
it takes 3 years.
it takes a
takes a
couple of
while.
years. Yeah.
That's the point I was going to make, because we have had now 21 years basically of bad coaching decisions. Basically, Bo Pelini wasn't a terrible one, but from my understanding from people kind of behind the scenes that I've talked to, he let the team run the team instead of him running the team.
Mhm.
So if you have a team full of players that don't listen to a coach, you build bad habits, and that's been happening for 21 years now. So it's going to take a little while to break those bad habits from the players that have been here for 2, 3, 4 years. So within the next few years, I think we'll start to see a better Nebraska program. I think 5 to 6 years before we're actually in contention for
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, our quarterback situation is really screwing us over right now, because our offense, our running game does not look bad, but once teams realize, oh shit, whatever his name, that Bunch kid can't throw for shit, they're just going to run the ball. They
Mhm.
put 8 guys in the box and we can't run. And then we know we can't throw. So here's my one thing that I'm going to be an annoying Nebraska fan about. If Tristan Gebbia would have stayed with Nebraska, he would be a Husker legend right now, because he would have came in and at least played well enough to beat Colorado and probably Troy. I think
Legend
so.
might be a stretch, but he would.
I won't say legend, but like he's going to be someone they're going to talk
He would
about
have
for a
been
long
popular.
time. And
He'd been popular.
Adrian Martinez might not get that job back if he's been gone for a couple weeks.
I mean,
Right.
okay,
I
so
can see it.
so
Yeah,
this
Gebbia
Bunch guy,
see it.
you can't be too mad at him because
No,
he's
I'm
just
not mad
playing.
at him. He just sucks.
He's just. I mean, he's not as
He's
good.
not there yet.
He's
he's not.
as good. But like, he's a walk on.
Yes.
So like he. I mean,
He didn't expect to play this
No,
year.
I mean,
let's be
no one
honest.
expected him to play.
I
this
heard
year.
he had scholarship offers from other schools, but like, not Nebraska level schools.
No.
And so like, he came in expecting to be the
Yes.
third string and just develop, and then
Mhm.
what's his face dipped.
Gebbia.
And so he was like, all right, I'm second string. But like, I mean, you can't blame him. He's just
I agree with you.
in an unfortunate situation, and he's going to catch a lot of flack.
He is
from
which
a lot of
sucks,
guys.
especially as a young guy, because you don't
Yeah.
want him to run him away from the program.
And this could be killer to him. Like, this could make or break like his development psychologically.
I will say this too, and I'm gonna get on Nebraska fans just about this point, because Michigan plays them this next weekend, so I'm not gonna do a whole lot of trash talking leading up to the game, but hopefully a lot after the game. Anyway, the buzz around Scott Frost, I know from us non-Nebraska fans, was
Annoying.
Yeah, that's probably the kindest term to use it. The recruiting. That's what Nebraska fans talked about a lot with Scott Frost, because he hadn't played a game yet. He says, look at all the recruits they're bringing in. I think retention of recruits is another big key, because Scott Frost, I believe it was Frost that recruited Gebbia, wasn't it? Oh, it was not. Oh, Mike Riley recruited him. All right, see, and he's already lost who would have been a backup quarterback. I think he was like a 3 or 4 star quarterback. On other rosters around the Big Ten, who are the teams that Nebraska hopes Scott Frost competes with, Penn State has McSorley, probably maybe the top quarterback in the conference. And then behind him, they have like a 5-star quarterback who just came in. Ohio has Dwayne Haskins, who very good. Behind him, Tate Martell, another 5-star guy, actually forced Joe Burrow out, and now he's starting for the number 6 team in the country. So that tells you like what kind of like level of talent they had there. Michigan has 2 5-stars behind the number 1 overall quarterback in the country from 2 years ago, coming out of high school. So like, as good as Nebraska fans feel Scott Frost kind of recruited this first year, there is a huge stepping stone to reach the Big Ten elite.
I think he did as well as a coach could do in his position, though. I don't think he could have done a whole lot better as a first-year coach who hasn't done anything for the program since he played.
Texas A&M's Jimbo Fisher, this is his first year. They currently have the number 1 recruiting class for all collegiate football teams next year.
You're comparing him to Jimbo Fisher, who was already established at Florida State and won national championships there.
Apparently,
We
he
all
won
know
a national
UCF didn't
championship
win a
with
national
UCF.
championship. We all know that. We're not even going to argue that they didn't. They didn't get into the playoffs. I'm not one of those guys. But, I mean, you can't really make comparisons to Ohio State and Florida State's Jimbo Fisher when Scott Frost hasn't really done much for Nebraska coaching yet.
You guys did get all horned up that he took a defeated UCF team to an undefeated UCF team.
The irrational fans did.
Right. They did get all horned up.
They did.
Which is, you got to admit, you got a little aroused.
Yeah.
I did because I was a UCF fan before that until we can actually vouch for that. I did like UCF before that. I was a big Blake Bortles guy when he was in college, so I like to see UCF going. Plus, I knew one of the quarterbacks playing at UCF, Noah Vedral, who now plays at Nebraska. So I liked it for that reason. You guys know on multiple times I said he will not do this at Nebraska the way everyone's saying he will.
I think it's irrational for people to think that it was going to happen in the first year. I know.
They're not playing the best teams they're playing aren't Memphis and USF. It's I mean, even in like your division, like Iowa and Wisconsin are better than Memphis and USF.
Oh yeah.
And then like the other half has the actual 4 best teams in the conference. So like yeah. But speaking about getting horned up, Oklahoma State looked pretty good this weekend. And we beat Boise, who thought they were the group of 5 team that was going to get the playoff committee all
Well,
pissed off this year.
they probably still are the best group of 5 team.
It's either them or UCF.
Yeah, I mean, shout out Josh Heupel, former Missouri offensive coordinator, getting the coaching job there. But I still think Boise will still get us some attention. They're still ranked, aren't they? The rankings came out on Monday.
I'm honestly not sure because they got beat down.
Oh no, they're not. They're not ranked anymore.
Oklahoma State beat them down. Like that was Boise State's one chance to make an impression. There was actually a statistic on ESPN's College Game Day where had Boise State won that game and then run the table in the Mountain West Conference, they had a 51% chance to make the college football playoff. But with their loss to Oklahoma State, they literally have a 0% chance to make the college football playoff now with their loss. That was the only win on their schedule that would have impressed anybody, would be a road win over a ranked Big 12 team. And they got doubled up, more than doubled up. So fuck them. Go Pokes.
That's fair.
I just want to make a point clear before we move on because you guys kind of moved on before I was done talking. But
Totally moved on.
yeah, no, I know. I wasn't. Having said everything I said, Nebraska fans need to calm down and be patient. Scott Frost even mentioned it's going to get worse before it gets better. We need to give this team and this program a while to even consider other options. You know
Did they go winless?
They could go winless potentially. Well, they play Rutgers, don't they? We should beat Rutgers.
I mean,
with Adrian Martinez back,
you play Purdue at home.
That'll be a tough one for us.
Stuck with Mizzou.
That'll be a tough one for us. Like we said earlier, this entire defense is basically the same as last year. And last year we did not have a good defense. So.
I mean, if what you're talking about, like clearing out a clubhouse of players who listen to players and not to the coach, that's kind of, put it in basketball terms, that's kind of what Mizzou did with Kim Anderson, which I liked Kim Anderson, but he was put in a real unfortunate situation, and he kind of did what was possible to help Mizzou get to where it was now, because he kicked out a lot of players that were on that team simply for just being shit people. You know, that team kind of ran itself when Frank Haith was there, and then it was just kind of like.
And then, Kim Anderson came in at an unfortunate time because just because of all the allegations being brought down, because Frank Haith dipped.
Yeah.
He pulled a Pete Carroll and got out right before he got out.
That was kind of the Frank Haith thing to do. He did it at Miami, and then he dipped to Mizzou, did it at Mizzou, dipped somewhere else.
Tulane, isn't he? I think he's at Tulane.
So, I mean,
be looking for something coming in and Tulsa.
I get those two
it sucks that it had to be Kim Anderson to do the job because, I mean...
Sometimes you need that sacrificial goat.
He was Mizzou's golden boy. He was the guy that people wanted him to be successful. But
I peed next to him one time.
That's cool. But like I said, Nebraska will be okay in a few years. We'll be good in a few years. But it's going to take at least 5 to 6 years before we're even in conversations.
But the thing about this that coming from a guy who does not pay attention to Nebraska football, Nebraska fans are not patient with coaches, though.
Nope.
With Mike Riley, Bo Pelini, you know.
I think we're starting to get to the point where we're learning the error of that. And I think eventually, if we're not with Scott Frost, we never will be, because this is our best option to be patient with a coach. You know what I mean? Like, if we're not patient with Scott Frost, we will never hire a good coach because they'll never want to come here, first off, because they'll get fired in 2 years if they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't learn to just shut the hell up and let the coaches do what the coaches do for a few years, even if it's 7 or 8 years, like, we need to let programs develop under a good coach.
Nebraska has a tough schedule.
We do. We have one of the toughest schedules.
The only
in the country.
game from like now on that I could see, you don't play Rutgers. You
I thought we did.
play Illinois.
Illinois would be like a team we could beat, I think.
Yeah,
But
Illinois
it's still not a. It's not a guaranteed win.
Not a good team.
Illinois
It's
just
not a
lost to
guaranteed win for us.
USF at home. So
Shout out
technically
Marlon.
it's Soldier
Shout
Field,
out
but
Marlon
basically
Mack.
pretty much.
USF is an undefeated football team. Their quarterback, a former Alabama commit, 4-star Blake Barnett, who's been playing well. USF actually has 2 wins over Power 5 teams to this point. They beat Georgia Tech the week prior and then beat Illinois this week. So Illinois, honestly, might not be the best chance for a win. Check and see there. They play Purdue and Northwestern, correct?
Yes. Nebraska's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they do.
Northwestern.
They play Northwestern, and 2 weeks later they play Illinois, and then Purdue before they play.
All right, Nebraska fans, you want to see what your game versus Akron would have looked like? Akron just went into Northwestern and defeated them this weekend.
Yep.
So, beat Northwestern and then legitimate gripe that you could have won the first game.
It's fair.
Yep.
What if Adrian Martinez would have got hurt in that game instead of the second game? Think it changes a lot?
In the Akron game?
Yeah.
Well, he would have been back by the Troy game. If it's the same injury.
Technically, yeah.
If it's the same injury, yeah.
Fair.
Which a lot of people, just from what I've read online, are pissed that we didn't play Adrian Martinez against Troy. I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
Why?
He's a freshman.
Yes, he's a freshman, first off, and why would we waste making the injury worse against a team that, you know what, we're going to lose, whatever. We'll move on. We need him for actual games, like against Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Iowa. I'd rather him wait the week and make sure his knee is actually healthy than try to ruin it for the rest of his career.
You know who we should talk about this with? Verse.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's call him right now. Well, never mind.
Boo work.
Yeah, speaking of Verse, shout out to Paison's Pizzeria.
Paison's Pizzeria.
The best pizza, the best price.
The best pizza this side of the Appalachian Mountains.
The best pizza this side of
north of
Mississippi.
the Mason-Dixon line.
The best pizza north of the Mason-Dixon line.
The
Paison's Pizzeria.
best New York style pizza.
No, because New York's north of the Mason-Dixon line.
People come from far
Is it
and
New York
wide
style
for
pizza?
Paison's
Yeah, our
Pizzeria.
ovens
considered?
Our ovens are shipped in from Brooklyn. Yeah, so it's like real New York pizza.
Nice.
Brooklyn. You know who's from Brooklyn? Paison's Pizzeria.
Ovens.
So wait, what's the catch?
And
I'm going with
I'm
the best pizza north
McLovin.
of the Mason-Dixon line.
Everything in Brooklyn is hot.
I'm gonna go with Paison's Pizzeria, the best pizza north of the Mason-Dixon line.
And next week we're going to go Paison's Pizzeria, the best pizza this side of the 39th parallel.
39
As
parallel.
as we were discussing Paison's Pizzeria and Nebraska struggles, Prince of
thank you.
Mukamura.
But thank you for
Yes,
the
thank you.
Paisons.
Thank you, Paisons. Prince of Mukamura, pick 6. Nebraska alumnus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Little known fact.
Alumnus is a girl.
Alumnus?
I thought.
Alumni?
Is alumnus a girl? I thought it was gender specific. Alumna.
I thought it was alumna.
Alumna is a girl, so alumnus is a guy.
Alumnus is like, I think alumnus is, yeah.
Alumnus isn't gender
Yeah, because it's a
neutral.
PC podcast.
We are very PC.
I wanna be PC.
I'll Google it real quick. We need to know the exact pronunciation. That's aluminum. I meant aluminum.
While Tucker's Googling that, that Nebraska defense had some of the hardest names to pronounce.
I will agree with that.
Nadamakong Su? Yeah.
And
Prince
Donkey Kong.
Amukamara.
Yeah. We had some real head scratchers there. Super talented though. We should just start going after more guys with impossible names to pronounce because apparently they're really good.
Yeah. The Mizzou, Alex O. Nobody can say his last name. What is it?
I can say it
What
on
is it?
Saturdays when they keep pronouncing it.
What is it? He's the tight end.
A buoy Kunum.
Nailed it.
A buoy Kunum, or it's something like that. I can't say it. I just call him Albert O. Everybody else calls
Amir
him
Abdullah.
Albert O.
It's not really super hard, but he was good.
Here's my blazing rational, or like, just like I'm casting this overarching. If your last name is more than 7 letters and super hard to pronounce, you're probably going to be good at a sport.
Sue.
Okay, so I figured it
Okay,
out.
in Donkey
And Donkey Kong, so.
In Donkey Kong, in Donkey Kong, Sue.
You guys want to learn how to say it?
And Domicon.
In Damakong, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know her.
Yeah, I wanted
It's like saying in Donkey
I
Kong.
wanted the Rams to draft him so bad instead of Sam Bradford because Oklahoma is.
Agreed.
I hated him.
I
I
think we
taught
can
my
all
little,
agree that Sam Bradford is the worst.
I taught my little brother how to say his name, and then Sam Bradford played for the Colts
It's way easier to teach your
played
brother
for
how to
the
say that
Rams and almost led them to a 500 record. And I was like, this is the height of luxury.
name.
So I just found this usage note on dictionary.com. Alumnus in Latin, a masculine noun, refers to a male graduate or former student. So Toby, very good on your English. The
Latin,
plural
actually.
is alumni.
He was good at his Latin.
Alumni is a group of guy graduates.
Toby was good at his Latin, not his English.
Whoa. Well,
Yeah,
it's in Latin.
it's Latin. Shit, just roasted his ass
Yeah.
phonetically.
But an alumna refers to a female graduate or former student. Plural is alumnae. Watch me whip. No, watch me alumnae. That's funny. Traditionally, the masculine plural alumni has been used in groups composed of both sexes and is widely so used in things like the alumni of Indiana University. So there we go. I'm glad we all learned about the proper usage of the word alumni. We'll move on to our segment. What segment do you want to do first? That's not a letter. Oh, yeah. Fantasy football. We'll talk about our fantasy football league. I pulled a good Chiefs move right here. I pulled a Chiefs from last year. I decided to go with Alex Smith instead of Pat Mahomes, and it burnt me. My team did not do too great this week. I played Shane. Pulling up the score here. Shane's beating me 151-98.
I believe that's the final score. I don't think either of
Yep,
us have a
it
player in
is
this league.
0 right now. Stephon Diggs for you is your top score, 35.94 points.
This week in general in the NFL, there was so much freaking offense. It was ridiculous. And
Yeah,
I think I had like one of the most like perfect teams for offense. Let me pull this up here.
Yeah, I mean,
Cam Newton, 27.6 points. Saquon Barkley, 24.8. Leonard Fournette got me 0 points. I still whooped your ass. Devonta Adams, 20.4. Stephon Diggs, like you said, 35.9. Jimmy Graham, 15.5. Golden Tate, 18.8. Defense got -2, so that was a bummer. But then Matt Prater came in with 10 points, so I was rolling.
So let's just go around the league. So you guys played it out. Played a fast and furious game.
Yeah, I made Tucker my bitch 151-98.
My strategy has not paid off yet, but we've played some pretty competitive ball games. Gave Tucker a run for his money last week. Gave Toby a little bit of a run for his money this week. Toby is going to beat me as the Indianapolis Colts only put up 76.4 points this week. The thing about the Colts is they run a 3 running back set and 2 tight ends, but we don't have like space for 2 tight ends and 3 running backs in this league, so I always got to sit somebody, and I always make the wrong decision. So the Indianapolis Colts won on the field, lost in fantasy football. Next is Team Ramsey. It beat the team known
What's the team name?
Beat my meat fastest Tyreek.
That's a good name.
That's a good name. But
Shout out to Ramsey putting the whooping on him.
Team Ramsey beat him, and it looks like he just got an all-around good effort from his team. You know, that's just good coaching on Team Ramsey's part. That team has great chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
As we touched on it, Team Miller beat Tucker right in the pussy. You know, Sundays are for kissing titties. Another good team name. We're gonna have to put the E on this episode.
You know what? Let's go back to the Sundays After Kissing Titties game.
I was
Team
still on
Davis-
that one.
Oh, true. I thought you were gonna move on.
Didn't go anywhere.
I just want to make a point. Jordan Davis, who runs Team Davis, has for 2 weeks in a row now played Carson Wentz, who's not playing, played Le'Veon Bell, who's not playing, and then just left his wide receiver slot empty.
All right, so we're gonna go
That's a
through.
bold strategy.
We're gonna go through. Team Davis
Still got
lost.
99.5 points.
Team Davis
You would've beat me.
almost put up 100 points without a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver. But
He would have beaten Tucker.
we go down to his bench. He had a running back on his bench, Chris Thompson, have 22.3 points.
Brandon
he had a wide
Cooks.
receiver, Brandon Cooks, scored 22.9 points. He had another wide receiver, Will Fuller, the V, scored 25.3 points. And if he puts anybody in at quarterback, he wins. But looking at his roster now, I don't think he has a backup quarterback.
He does not.
He does not have a backup quarterback.
Jordan Davis auto-drafted all of this and did not pay attention, apparently.
But Colin Brennan, shout out my brother for the good team name and for beating Team Davis. Now we're going to go on to, a tough fought ball game between Hardcore Porn and Dimitri Crotch-Lick-Me-Off.
Dimitri. Which, two great names, by the way. Dimitri Crotch-Lick-Me-Off is just one of my favorite names to say. Against Hardcore Porn, named after Zach's favorite
First
type of
ballot Hall of
porn, the type of porn with Frank Gore.
Frank Gore.
That's a good point.
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore.
Frank
First ballot
Gore.
Hall of Fame.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
People forget about Frank Gore.
I asked you guys last year if you thought Frank Gore was a Hall of Famer,
I
and you
forgot to
guys
talk
looked
about
at me
Mizzou.
weird, and then I told you his stats, and then you guys were like, "Oh, well, yeah."
I'll just mumble it in the
Yeah,
microphone while you guys.
big week for Frank Gore because obviously a team with his namesake beat Crotch-Lick-Me-Off, and he also became the fourth all-time leading rusher in NFL history, passing Curtis Martin.
And
Very
he does it without wearing a cup.
Also, that was a battle of teams that were both 0-1 fighting for the first win.
Yep.
Fighting
Yeah.
for that first dub. Looks like
We got
Hardcore
one
Porn's
more
gonna
game,
get
right?
it.
In that league?
No, we got it.
No. Well, we talked about Kieran's team.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, we
right.
talked
Never
about
mind.
it. We got it. Colts didn't quite get the dub.
Against BDs, DSLs give Woodhead. Just an incredibly long and complicated name.
Full of acronyms.
Very Nebraska friendly too.
You want to explain why that's so Nebraska friendly outside of Danny Woodhead's name?
Full of acronyms.
Because Danny Woodhead went to college in Nebraska as well as grew up from there.
We'll wrap up the show with our final thoughts. Shane, you want to start us off?
Yep. As you know, I will continue with this day in sports history. So, this day, September 18th, 1848, baseball rules first baseman can tag base for out instead of a runner. So, apparently, before that, you had to tag the runner instead of just the base. It wasn't such thing as force outs. And when they made that up, they asked, why? Why can't you just tag the base now? And he said, because those are the rules and sticky McSchnickens.
Do you ever think about that? Like how rules come to be? And people, like how we get mad when they're like, yeah, why are people tossed out of games when they get hit in the head? Do you think they were mad when things were like, if you step out of bounds, the clock stops? They're like,
Yeah.
well, why would you do that? That doesn't
Yeah, I
make
bet
any
that pissed off
sense.
a lot of people. Or like when the forward pass was invented, I bet that pissed off so many defensive coordinators. Like, we got a plan for passes now? Like, we
And
never had to do that
runs?
before. Yeah, how are we
Yeah.
supposed to do both at one time?
Football
Not a
was so
magician.
easy before you had to plan for the pass. Just put 11 guys in the box.
That's very true. That's a good point, KB.
Speaking of, there was
People
actually
forget.
Why'd you even need a quarterback?
There was actually a head coach. We were watching Game Day. Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern said that
Yeah.
That was-
RPOs, which is a thing of the present, said it's the most
Run pass
pure
option.
form of communism, and he hates RPOs as a defensive coach. So people
RPOs,
are still getting pissed off.
if you don't know,
Yeah, with
or run pass options.
run pass options.
Yeah.
So people are still getting pissed off about football rules today.
Yeah,
Very complex.
I just like think of stuff like that, like rules that we think are very like acceptable and common.
Yeah.
If back in the day they were like pissed off about it, and I'm sure. Like, Toby, do you have a final thought?
I do. So
All right.
we didn't get to talk about them during our college football segment, but the Michigan Wolverines played not a great game, especially not on defense. But Shea Patterson is the first quarterback that I've seen under Coach Jim Harbaugh that actually plays the way you expect a elite collegiate quarterback to play. He's good at throwing the football. He makes smart decisions, besides his red zone interception. But he makes good decisions, and I have not given him enough credit through this podcast, but he is just as good, if not better, than every quarterback in the Big Ten. And by the end of the season, maybe the best quarterback entering the NFL draft.
No, you forgot Drew Luck's a senior.
You forgot Jim
no,
Harbaugh coached
I didn't forget
Andrew
that.
Luck.
Yeah. You forget that
I said
actually
it at Michigan.
Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
is
I was about to
under
say, I was like-
Michigan. So that means Drew Luck is under Jim Harbaugh geographically. So that means Drew Luck is the best quarterback under Jim Harbaugh.
Nope.
What if the world's spinning different than we thought it was? Because then, like,
So it's spinning like this.
because
He's spinning like north
like
to south.
north to pole.
Because
North
like Will
pole to
Greer
South
could
pole?
be under Jim Harbaugh.
It wouldn't matter.
Would he still be above Jim Harbaugh though?
Like, we
Even
just
if you look at the map, is West Virginia's under Michigan?
But what if we're just like looking at it like we're on our sides, and we're just looking at everything sideways?
But if it's spinning up and down like pole to pole, then at one point we're all under Harbaugh, and then at another point we're all over Harbaugh. So
Yeah.
That's a good point.
yeah. So how do we know where we're at right now?
So Jim Harbaugh is the best coach under us.
So I think this leads pretty smoothly into Kieran's final thought.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of time zones. So
Mm.
here's the thing. Going through time zones, and you're not going to agree with me, and that's okay. It's just my way of thinking.
I might
Is kind of like time travel.
let's hear it out.
Because, all right, say say you're going to Disney and you live in Missouri. This is I'm speaking from experience, and I'm texting my significant other in Missouri. It's 5:00 where I am, but it's 4:00 where she is. So I'm living 5:00 before she is. So it's like I'm sending a
It's 5
message
o'clock somewhere.
back in time.
Without time zones, would 5:00 somewhere be a song?
No.
I don't think so.
And the thing that I was thinking about is like, how many time zones are there in the world? Tuck, can you Google that for me?
Yep,
right
I'm
quick?
on it. You can keep talking because it's
So,
gonna
like-
take me a while.
So like you can like start somewhere, and if you're going at the speed where it goes, you can go through a time zone in an hour. You can go from 5, and right as it's about to turn 6, you'll go into the next time zone, and it'll still be 5. So it's like
There's 24 time zones in the world.
24 time zones
Oh, for 24 hours.
for 24 hours. So like
So
Each of them are an hour apart.
You could-
explain to me how this is not time travel.
you could be at
Because-
5:00 for a day.
So, that's interesting.
No. Well, you have to consider how long it takes to get from time zone to time
He's
zone. It
saying
doesn't take
theoretically,
Yeah, but
if you could
theoretically, if
travel
you're
time
going-
zones in an hour. But so in Nebraska has 2 time zones, and when you get out west, it switches from Central Time to Mountain Time because it's out by Colorado. And so I know people who like when they leave work at 6, and by the time they get home, it's 5 because they go back across time.
Time
zones.
travel.
Yeah, people forget about mountain time.
Just-
How is that not time
Just
travel?
rudimentary time travel.
People definitely forget about mountain time.
I think people who want to, like, people are like, oh, we haven't discovered time travel yet. We're looking in the wrong places, guys. We've already got time travel. Just build off that.
You know,
Has anybody noticed when they go? I don't know if any of us have, but when you go through a time zone, have you noticed it? Like, if you look at your phone,
You get
It
younger.
changes
you just pull out your
automatically.
phone. Have you like seen it like roll
Yeah.
over?
Yeah,
I have
it's
I have
wild.
never seen it roll over.
No,
I can
yeah,
only
no,
speak
it's
from
wild.
one experience where we got delayed in Denver on a flight to Vegas, stopped in Mountain Time from Central, then went into West Coast time, and we stopped in Denver. The flight took a little over an hour, and so I felt like I got to Vegas in 5 minutes. And I apologized to my coach saying, I'm sorry I got here at 4:30 in the morning. He was like, word us out, and it's like 3:30, you dumb fuck. And
So-
I was like, oh, well, I apologize, dick.
So also, when I said we're looking in the wrong places for time travel, we could also be looking in the wrong place for teleportation. Because if you start one place, and it goes back to our plane theory, and you take off in a plane in one time zone, and like it's a 3-hour flight, so you leave it 6 and it's a 3-hour flight and you just go through other time zones, you know, you could take off one place at 6 and then land in another place at 6.
Holy shit.
Are time zones the reason jet lag exists? So if we get rid of time zones,
well, actually, kind of,
Kind of.
because you're on a plane for so long. I think that your legs get tired. Because I always thought it was jet leg, so because your legs are tired. But,
Which begs the question.
also, if you leave at 4 p.m. and it's like whatever 6
especially
hour
if you're
flight,
going like forward.
if you're going in east, so you're losing hours. You get there and it's like daytime. And you're like, oh, I didn't even sleep. Now you're screwed and you have jet lag, whatever it's called.
Which begs the question: do West Coast teams have an advantage in the time, like over the other teams? Because if they play a game against an East Coast team that is it's 7 o'clock East Coast. It's really 4 in the afternoon there. It goes till midnight. East Coast teams are all tuckered out because it's midnight, but it's 9 o'clock for these guys. So they're used to staying up. They're used to playing baseball at 9 o'clock. These guys not used to playing baseball at midnight.
That's a very good point.
I believe there is a body clock, but it works both ways. Hawaii on College Game Day, they played a noon Eastern kickoff at Navy in Annapolis. So they flew from Hawaii into Maryland. The game time in Hawaii would have been 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So people don't just wake up. They're like,
wake up.
Like, you sometimes have those morning practices, but you're not ready to play a game at 6 a.m. And that is interesting.
Yeah.
To think about. What I think about is if you watch games, if you're watching games overseas, England would be the day. England's the dead middle.
England
but
is the self-proclaimed
but they would be
center
in
of the
front of
world.
us, correct?
Yeah.
So everybody in
because the
Middle
starting
East
of
and
time is
China-
in Greenwich.
So yeah, the prime meridian's in Greenwich, which is in England, I believe.
Yes.
So it starts that's dead center. That's noon. That's true noon. Is England.
Yeah.
And then everything either goes you lose or you gain time going to the west, so towards us, and you add time.
We were talking about this earlier. We could go back in time so much that we lose a day. Because
the international date line, you literally lose a day when you cross it.
So if you just keep going back and it could go 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you lost a day.
Well, how about this though? How cocky of a move is England that they say we're the center of the world?
It wasn't even them, I don't think. I think it was.
Let's just say.
I just like how the Middle East,
goddamn redcoats.
Yeah, why is everything centered around England?
Because they literally colonized the entire world at one point. Yeah.
Well, they're not. It's very special.
And it really depends
they
on
can't
which way
even
you're
look at
going.
memes anymore.
We really need Neil deGrasse Tyson on this show to come explain to us how big of idiots we are, and how simple these things are that we can't even fathom.
Get some from NASA.
It's just a. It's just a different way of thinking. It's the different way of thinking that I bring to this podcast.
No, I appreciate it. There's another thing that really I was thinking about while you were talking about that. I guess there's more than 24 time zones. I read that wrong because there's some that are 30 and 45 minutes apart. No, this one's 15 minutes apart. Imagine going into a time zone and losing 15 minutes. It's all of a sudden it's 6:30. And
no, that's just a Tom Coughlin. Is that in Jacksonville? Because that's just Tom Coughlin.
That's not in Jacksonville. It's in Pakistan.
You know what was really interesting?
Jacksonville.
In the 2008 Olympics, which were held in Beijing over the summer, I found out that China operates under, even though they
martial law.
Even though they should have,
they might.
Even though they should have different time zones.
Jim.
China was just this would be way easier if we just functioned under one time zone. So China fails to recognize it, and they say, nope, all of China has one time. It's Central China time.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the map right now, and in the middle, you can just see, in the middle of the time zone, it's just China outlined.
That's kind of like Arizona saying, fuck you to daylight savings. They're no, we're on
Which brings up an
time.
excellent point. Why do time zones even exist,
Yeah, I thought about this earlier, too. Because, who cares if 5 p.m. is sunny in one place and dark in another place?
Yeah.
It's just 5 p.m. That's
Yeah.
like if we all see different colors but call them the same thing. Like it's not gonna
I
screw
bet it
anyone.
was.
Yeah, but if you go somewhere it's dark there, like you're just like, all right, it's nighttime here. Like they didn't have time
we
in
just-
the caveman days, and they all got along fine.
If we start referring to nighttime as AM and light time as PM, what's that really going to mess with?
Exactly.
You know, it's
Exactly.
going to be the same thing.
It's just labels. We could call it
Yeah.
watermelon time if all we really wanted to.
That's a good point.
They should just get rid of the recycling like 12 o'clock.
I'm in.
Like you recycle it and just go, all right,
All
1
24
to
hours.
24, just military time. And then the whole world could be on just one set schedule. So like if I'm looking up stuff for like Olympic events happening in, I don't know, England. I was about to say Australia, but I forgot it doesn't exist. But like if they're happening in England, it's just like it's going to take place at 23 o'clock. I'm like, all right, now the whole world knows it's taking place at 23 o'clock. Like
Really, time doesn't mean anything.
Toby
though.
is out here just uniting the world under one time zone.
Really,
And I'm with it.
Time's a flat circle.
Time doesn't-
because the Chiefs and
The Earth is a flat circle.
time doesn't mean anything. If we just time was made by people just to like keep us organized, but like it doesn't mean anything really.
Yep.
Like
I think about the calendar a lot. Like the calendar was just something that some Mayan came up with, and like days of the week. Like what are days of the week? Like
you know what doesn't make any
what do they start on?
You know what doesn't make any sense about the calendar? How the season starts December 20th, and then we roll over into a new year with that season. Like, it would make more sense to start it, like, say, okay,
January to
instead
March.
of, it's like starting January and like April. And you're like, this is spring. It starts in spring, and now we have like 3 months. Boom, it's summer.
I'm with
We
it.
have 3 months,
I'm with it.
fall. Like,
I think you guys are forgetting to recognize there's only 2 seasons, football season and not football season. But it follows the same principle because it starts in like August and goes to
It goes into
February.
yeah,
So
it goes into the next year.
this is a sports podcast.
also,
I don't know what my final thought is, to be honest with you.
so Tucker's dad's a preacher, and
Preacher.
Yes.
according to the Bible, God created the sun on the 4th day, if I'm not mistaken. So how do they know the first 3 days
Thursday.
went by without the sun? They're just guessing at when. Because, like, did they have a concept of time then without the sun? Because that's how we got, like, the concept of time was
Right,
people look
where
at
the
the
sun
sun.
is.
So if the sun wasn't there until the 4th day, then how do we really know it was 3 separate
And
days
was
that
it
he
actually
did that
the
on?
first day, though?
Before the
So is
calendar, how did
everything
they
the first
celebrate
day?
birthdays? Was it like they're just like, I feel really happy today. It's probably my birthday.
I think they had other things. I think they just had other things to worry about, like, oh god, there's a saber-tooth tiger out there, rather than no one said anything about my birthday.
He won't kill
So
me.
wait,
It's
like
my birthday.
where in like the timeline of time does like Jesus times and dinosaurs? Like where are they at?
All right, holy shit, yeah, you need a lot more than we have time left to discuss
All
this because
right, all right.
that's a doozy.
Hey,
Yeah.
good thing we went to 2 podcasts a week.
It's a good thing. Thursday we will have
Friday.
Friday. We talk about it on Thursday. So it's like time travel.
Oh my god, so much time travel.
We time travel so much we don't even realize it. So on Friday
Cosmonauts.
we'll talk MLB because
Mob.
yeah, there's a Yelich. Christian Yelich just hit a cycle. He hit for the cycle today on Monday, and this is the 5th time that a player's done it, 2 times in a season. So that's pretty neat. We'll talk about that. Then there's some playoff races that are heating up. We'll hit on those. Start of NHL coming up. So we'll kind of hit on other topics besides football. Just football is pretty awesome. We like to talk about football. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Nosebleed Radio. Follow us on Twitter at NosebleedsKnow. Like us on Facebook, Nosebleed Knowledge. We'll see you guys on Friday. Peace.
P.S. If anyone knows Neil deGrasse Tyson, please give him our phone numbers. We need to discuss things.